feel like Gordon Bombay would have taken his career to even further heights.
Everything's flashy, everything's cocaine, everything's
Fun.
Open wide for some soccer.
I don't care what you think about what your personal thoughts are at home. I care that you hate the Cowboys.
Call this college rule.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Sports Experience Podcast. Dom and Chris here. Before we begin, as always, we are recording down here at Engle Studio in downtown Tucson for all of your audio needs. If you are so interested, make sure you give our social medias for both of us and the podcast a like and subscribe, and check out our comedy content as well, because we're just a couple of comics down here who enjoy talking sports, and we're closing in on almost 250 episodes of this, Chris.
Yeah, that's right. That's going to be quite the episode.
So. That will be a lot of substances.
That's right. Tune in for that one. We'll see how that one goes. We'll see if it goes on the rails, off the rails. I don't know.
Doing rails? No.
But today we're talking about Clarence Seedorf, one of the best midfielders in his time. Yeah, man. Give me some birth on him.
Let's get some birth going. Born April Fool's Day, April 1st, 1976 in Paramaribo, Suriname, which, if you don't know, is on the north coast of South America, kind of there next to Venezuela, British Guyana. You're like, why do the Dutch have a former colony there? Pirates of the Caribbean. Read your history. Anyway.
That was pretty good.
Yep. But
so
surrounded by soccer. Just surrounded by soccer.
Yes, but they immigrate to the Netherlands when he's pretty young, and I think it's because I was trying to look into his dad more, but it said he was like a player and scout / like agent, and you're like, oh, so he was just kind of like involved in soccer, and I feel like they moved to right outside of Amsterdam, and kind of like just got his whole family into the youths, of soccer there. Yeah,
he has two other brothers that played as well, and they played professionally. And I think he has a nephew that played.
A nephew and a cousin.
Yeah,
who both played. So I don't think his cousin was actually I think he played in the lower division, and then a nephew that's now. And then you think about it, you're like, oh, this might have been one of those guys where his son's gonna come through, and you're just like, oh yeah,
it's gonna be one of.
But yeah, his whole family came through the Ajax system.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Of old Johan Cruyff.
I was just going to say, we've talked about somebody who
he pumped his money back into it, knowing that that's where they need to get their stars from was, like a farm system.
Pretty much, yeah.
So that's what they did. Coming through, he being through in this... losing my thought here. Being in this young Ajax team, he actually debuted so young because they said he pretty much was like a kid in a man's body at that time, but his on-field intelligence was so much more.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So like he definitely had the power. So he ended up debuting for them the 29th of November '92, and he was their youngest ever debut.
Not even 17.
242 days, which I love when they say that. That's always been, those are broken now with 15-year-olds where you're just like, all right, guys, let's chill.
Yeah.
Sometimes they do it to like do a little media thing, but with Seedorf, you can tell he was just like at that level at 16.
Like we can't play you on the youth team anymore. Like it doesn't do you any good.
Yep.
It doesn't do you any good.
But it also was, that was the other thing, because Louis van Gaal was the coach, so he was one of these great coaches that just literally played him in almost every position except for striker. I don't know if you saw in his actual youth team coming up, he almost exclusively played striker.
Oh, wow.
And then when he became professional, he never played striker, I don't think, once.
No.
So, like, that's the thing that you see where it's just like the coaches are like, whoa, you're way too muscular and not quick enough, technically. But you have all of this intelligence. So that's the thing that he said in this first year. He literally was like, I played right back, center back, left back, right wing, center mid. And you're just like, oh, yeah, you literally played this like whole squad, almost like sometimes they do with a baseball player where they're just like, let's just see exactly where your best natural position is.
You play everywhere.
Yes.
You play everywhere.
And he could. And he ended up playing like right mid a lot for his first season. And then they really end up moving him to center mid. In later seasons, but he said that was such great learning in that time because he was just like, oh, this is what the right back feels right here when I bail him out, or you know what I mean, stuff like that.
Well, playing so many positions, you just learn about them all.
Exactly.
And then you not only you learn about them, you learn what they're supposed to do, and then what you're supposed to do while they have the ball.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
So.
It really makes for a great soccer player, and that's what we see in this this early 90s is the Ajax's big turnaround, and a lot of people kind of give it to Clarence Seedorf being in the middle of this team, because literally the next year they do the treble.
Yep.
Which is all 3 titles in the Netherlands. You know, the Eredivisie.
I never know how to pronounce that.
And the two cups that are like March Madness, where it's like bracket style. Where now everybody's saying like, oh wow, this Ajax team is like a huge like force to be reckoned with, because they had so many youth players.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It was like looking like that. The next year they ended up doing the domestic double with the Eredivisie, which is the league title in Netherlands, and a Champions League versus AC Milan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, their 4th European Cup title. That's his 4th European Cup title. That's amazing.
Yeah. So it's everybody's kind of like hyped on this team. Their whole midfield is Dutch.
Yeah.
So like we'll talk a little bit about international play, but like the Dutch did something that a lot of people like. They put 3 in the back and then 4 in the middle and then 3 up top. And they only could do that because the 4 in the middle were just like some of the best midfielders. So it was like one of those things where it was like, oh yeah. So he's playing next to like Edgar Davis and like all of these players, but like there was something that came, and I wanted to get more into it, but I feel like we might do an episode of it. But there was a ruling.
Yeah, I saw that.
And this was for youth players, especially youth players that get signed to like these really bad contracts, and then they're like, I'm really good now. I don't want to play another year for almost no money.
Yeah.
So he ends up electing, because Ajax did offer him like a really good contract, I saw, but he selects to go to the Italian league, the Serie A, because in this time that was considered the most competitive league by far, and that was like one of those where you could get one of those bigger clubs to see you. So like him even winning the Champions League at Ajax, he felt like he needed to like prove himself in a better league.
Yeah, and he goes to what, Sampdoria or whatever.
Yep.
And even if you're not on like an AC Milan, you're getting noticed. How many eyes are on you?
There's more eyes. Exactly.
Netherlands, which means more money, more marketing opportunities, and when your next contract comes around, you're going to make bank.
And that was literally, it was one of these paths that people were like, oh, I want to do a smaller club here and then probably go to an AC Milan or something like that. Yeah. And he was so smart because like different leagues play different. Like it's just the way it is. And his style of play really is for the Italian league. Like he's not the fastest player. He is the smartest player. He has absolutely unbelievable passing, and he's a great defender.
Which we've talked about in all our episodes. It's all about defense.
Yes, in Italy.
Yeah.
And that's the type of player he is. So that was the thinking, that he was probably going to get picked up by like a Juventus, AC, you know what I mean? But he said in the last game that they played, the coach of Real Madrid, which I think it was Fabio Capello at that time, watched the game in the stands. He had just taken over, so he wasn't technically, like they had just given him the job. He's watching the game in the stands. He's an Italian guy. He watches both of them play, and he walked up to him and he just goes, walks up to Clarence Seedorf and just goes, what do you think about coming with me to Real Madrid next year? And he literally just goes like this. He just goes, me? It's just like, yes, of course. Clicks right in with this Real Madrid team.
Yeah.
This is the other thing, though, too, that's kind of not shitty, because I love it, but he did jump around on a couple of clubs for free transfers.
Yeah.
So that means they pay you so much more. Because as your agent, I'm like, yo, you just saved so much on a transfer fee. Let's give my boy a couple million more. Yep. So he's living the good life.
Living the best life.
I'm just saying, he goes to Real Madrid, which he said was the kind of like club that he was like, that I couldn't even imagine from going from Ajax or starting at Ajax, like even playing there.
Yeah. But, I mean, and it didn't take much time at all, too. That's the other thing.
Exactly.
It's like you wake up the next day, oh, man, I'm in La Liga right now.
Yes.
Yes.
And first year, Real Madrid had won the La Liga championship the last year. They win it this year. It was 96-97.
Mm-hmm.
He's really clicking, but the way Real Madrid is, they fire their coach. They bring in another coach. I think it was a German guy.
Yeah.
The second season, that guy has a really good season. So this is 97-98, and this is when he wins his second Champions League.
Yeah. He just wins everywhere he goes.
Yes, and he wins his second Champions League. I think they beat
Juventus.
And he ends up beating Juventus a couple of times, which they say they hate. The old lady hates him. But 98-99, he's playing a lot, but they don't win anything. The next year, 99, they bring in a new, or in this season, they bring in a new coach, Hiddink, and he does not like Seedorf. And
I read they almost traded him for Zinedine Zidane.
They definitely tried to do it, and then Zidane ended up coming in over on a transfer just for money. On like 2 years later.
Okay.
But that was like a big thing that they were trying to swap and like with some money on top and like all that kind of stuff. But then he could just tell that he was not going to play. So he ends up going to Inter Milan for his first ever transfer for like 23 million. But at Inter, he's not that. It's not that he's bad whatsoever. They just don't really win anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which it's his only real like long stop that they don't really win, you know.
Mm-hmm. But he moved somewhere else.
Well, this is the move that we did it with our Figo episode.
Yep.
Where we talked about some of these moves in soccer. You look back and you're like, how did that ever even go down? So he moves from Inter Milan to AC Milan, which is unheard of. They ended up switching players, which is actually pretty rare. Even though you hear him get swapped a couple of times, it's more common that players get bought out.
Yeah.
For Francisco Coco, who was a great player, but not that. Then this is the thing that people were saying. It was like one of those trades that it was like, oh, Seedorf is playing good. We'll trade this other good player. He goes to AC Milan and becomes like an icon.
Like at the time, there's logic behind it, but as you get further and further away, you're like, oh,
yes.
No.
Well, it's just like one of those baseball trades where, you trade your guy for a washing machine and you're like,
so
all
many
right,
we've discussed on this
podcast.
This
washing machine doesn't work like I thought it would.
And then you got to go back to the Home Depot. No.
But Francisco was a very good player, but Seedorf just fit into this AC Milan midfield, which some say from 2002 to 2010-11 was probably the best three-way midfield, or with some of the best. So it was him, Gattuso, Pirlo, and then up top it was normally like Kaká, Ronaldinho, which we did an episode on, and
we talked
Rivalio,
about some of the
like
games he's in.
yeah. So like
Uh-huh.
this is what I mean. So like moving to AC Milan made it just fit. You know what I mean? Like they ended up winning their first Coppa Italia in 26 years, which was like
That's a
huge.
long time for a team like that.
Exactly. It would be like the Yankees not winning a pennant for 50 years. Or
Well,
whatever,
I mean, they haven't won in the last 15.
All right, here we go. That's what I want to hear. But that's what I mean. It is like a big story club that goes through a huge drought, and you're like, oh, damn. All right.
They won the Champions League too.
And then so he becomes this is where Clarence, you really see him be like, oh, he was the backbone of these teams. So like in this year he wins his third Champions League with 3 different teams.
Yeah, you don't see that a lot in any professional sport.
No.
Like with the guy you can have guys that are on the team, but not like the best player on the team.
Or at least like the backbone of that midfield.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So we're like, he was very much a defensive play out, like the kind of midfielder you need to where like your center attacking midfielder can just kind of stay up.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So where like Messi doesn't have to drop, or like whoever's on your team, or like it's like, but yeah, he becomes the first player ever to do that with 3 different teams. And then next year they win the league title in Italy, which that was such a huge thing because they had gone through a drought with that. And then 2004, 2005, we get to the Champions League final that we had an episode on.
Yes, we did.
Versus Liverpool and Istanbul, which I still think is the best Champions League final ever. If you're an AC Milan fan, I get it, but it is the most thrilling final ever. If you want to check it out,
It's like if you're a Falcons fan, 28-3.
Oh my God, yeah, seriously though. AC Milan goes up 3-0. Maldini scores 1, Crespo scores 2, and then Liverpool end up coming back and beating them after tying it,
penalty kicks,
and then going to penalty kick. It's one of the craziest, Champions League finals that you'll ever watch. He ends up losing that, and then in that summer, in the summer of love of 2004, 2005,
that was a good summer.
That we get the Italian match fixing.
I was gonna say, and you know what? He's one of the guys who doesn't go.
Yes, so that's
because we had talked about that in our couch because I wanted to bring that up too. I'm like, he was one of the guys that just said, "No, I'm staying.
Yes,
I'm staying for this."
So there was
Zlatan left, I think, right?
Well, no. So they played for Juventus.
Oh, that was it. No, but I mean, just in general throughout the league.
Oh, yes,
the teams were getting
So a lot of the bigger names were leaving because the money kind of like dropped out at that time.
Well, that's what happens when you do things like that.
So he stays in, and they get docked points. Mm-hmm. And this is what everybody says, is those teams really had to rebuild. Like Juventus came back a little bit stronger than AC Milan did, even though they like dropped down. Mm-hmm. And there were definitely some years where they kind of were like rebuilding, but they were still one of the best midfielders. That's the way it is for me. Is like they had some of the best midfield that you would ever see.
It's kind of the best pitching in baseball.
Yes,
like it just the advantage that it gives you.
He ends up winning one more in 2010, 2011. One more Scudetto.
Yep.
He ends up winning the second one, and he is for AC Milan. He is the foreigner with the most caps.
I saw that, yeah.
He's just in this era. He played in some of the best midfields, and then this is when I want to get into the international, because the international is a little bit worse.
Oh, it's kind of the opposite.
Yes,
and it's kind of depressing
because this is the Dutch era in which they had like all of the, when a team has all promise and they keep getting knocked out of semifinals.
They never won. I mean, it was like, when they had Cruyff almost.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
It was just the 20 years set in the future. Mm-hmm. And I didn't even know they didn't win a World Cup until I went through it researching
That's what I mean, because they are a lot of people feel like they are the team that just has not won that should have won. You know what I mean? And in this era, it was a couple of like what they call like their golden era, but they feel like it was that second golden era where they had this unbelievable midfield, and they literally couldn't do anything. And a lot of people say when he first came in the 96 Euros,
because he's playing for the Netherlands, because I read that Suriname does not allow dual citizenship.
No.
Which is crazy.
No, yeah, they make you choose.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I haven't heard about Suriname's professional soccer. So, I mean, it's a pretty obvious choice.
I mean, come on. That would have been funny if he was just like, you know what?
I'm going to be the best player on a team that I don't even know if we have. Do we have enough guys?
Yeah, exactly.
Do we have enough guys?
It's like that Disney movie, The Green...
the Big Green?
The Big Green.
The Sandlot.
I was about to call it The Green Mile, and I was like, all right, we're taking this...
Walking the Big Green Mile.
We're taking it a wrong direction, man.
Whatever happened to Steve Gutenberg?
The Goot?
The Goots.
Mahoney? He's still living the good life.
Yes, he is. All those Police Academy residuals.
Oh, my God. The man's rich as he could be.
Oh, God.
Those residuals just keep... I mean, I'm just saying, I watch those every single year, so...
All I think of is stealing! What did I tell you about going to those... Why do you think we took you out of those Police Academy movies? For fun? Because I didn't see anybody laughing. There goes Griffey and Stocks.
That is a fun movie, Charlie. All right, so international's just not as so. 96, he ends up missing the penalty, the semifinal to get knocked out. 2,000 euro, or I'm sorry, he goes to the 98 World Cup, which is the only World Cup he plays in.
Yeah, I thought that was weird.
He just will bring it up. He's just too. What they said was he was too boisterous. There were too many captains, and he felt like he should have been more of like a captain on the team.
Okay.
And like so he goes through ups and downs with them. So he plays the 2000 Euros, the 2004 Euros, but then we get into what probably is his prime, which would be the 2008 Euros, and this was the. Marco van Basten is coaching, and he ends up going with a bunch of youth players.
I did read that part towards the end, but that's kind of crazy that they wouldn't put him on like 2002 World Cup or 2006. Like,
it's just it's tough to.
Is there that much politicking like with soccer? Because
he might have been injured in one, and then the Dutch might have not made one.
Oh, that's true. Okay,
and now I'm trying to think about it in 2002, but.
I just assume they're always in it because they always seem to have good people.
But that's the thing is everybody was saying, like, if they're not making it, why isn't he playing? And then there's so much politicking with especially international.
Okay.
Where he was very boisterous, and we'll get into this post-career because he felt like he was like, needed to tell the manager like we shouldn't run this formation, we should do this. So there was a lot of that, especially what they said with Marco, was that's when it finally came out.
Okay,
That's why I was because like that's why Marco was just like that's why I was going with youth players. He like wouldn't do what I told him to do. He thought he like almost knew more, and Seedorf was just like no, that's not true. So there's a lot of I'm just saying there's a lot of politicking.
He said, she said.
Yes, there's a lot of politicking. So he ends up wrapping up his career in Brazil because that was his international. It was just pretty much disappointment. It really is.
It's crazy to see this because a lot of the soccer players we talk about, like unless they're like injured or whatever, they're playing in like multiple World Cups, or if they're from Europe, they're playing in all these Euro, finals and stuff like that, or Euro.
Especially this. Because you would think because they really had some great like Van Persie and Arjen Robben and like all of these great players from this era, but they just didn't. They just don't win shit in the Dutch. But man, they have some great players. But yeah, he ends up playing for Botafogo. Joey Botafogo.
Oh shoot! Did they lose to Amy Fisher in the finals?
No, actually they win.
No, I know.
That was the other thing that people thought was kind of a crazy move, Italy to Brazil, and he was like, I want to still be competitive, and they offered me a 2-year contract. He goes, wins the title in 2013, and then wins like another cup in 2014, and ends up retiring to then take over coaching of AC Milan.
Yeah,
and this is what everybody's thought.
Inter Milan.
No, AC Milan.
AC Milan. No, I read that wrong. My bad.
And this is what everybody thought his path was because he was so boisterous on the field, and he really only coaches for them for 1 year.
He has like short stints in multiple spots,
and it's not good.
No.
So it's either he doesn't connect with the players or the management. Do you know what I mean? So it's like the owners, because sometimes it's one or the other. So he goes to China.
I saw that.
Makes some good money.
Hell yeah.
And then ends up coaching Cameroon for the African Cup of Nations because
they were like a good team too. I had read. Like,
yes,
they won the Africa thing the last time they played it or whatever.
And it was because like I think it was Sven-Göran Eriksson or somebody couldn't coach him, so he like kind of stepped in, and they didn't win. He didn't do bad, but like exactly what you said. All of his coaching stints have been 1 year. You know what I mean? So it's like there's something wrong with it.
There's like a disconnect.
Yes. So either just hasn't found the right club with it because a lot of people think he really is good, or he needs to be like an assistant.
Yeah. No, because like if you're not winning, they'll just show you the door every single time you try.
Exactly.
Which is unfortunate.
Just to close it on him, because he really played his best soccer with AC Milan. When he left AC Milan, he said, I'm leaving after 10 wonderful years. I leave a family with 2 Champions Leagues, 2 league titles, and a Coppa Italia. That's just with AC Milan. And then he had a league title with Real Madrid and a Champions League, a league title with Ajax and a Champions League.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what people were saying. It was just like, oh yeah, he really was a backbone of this team. Like, and
They don't make guys like that.
well, for me, and we just came off of the Kurt Flood episode, he was probably just like one of the best center fielders, defensive center fielders on these championship teams where you're just like, oh yeah, all right,
you
like
can hang your hat on that.
Yeah, you can hang your hat on this guy. So
It took advantage of changes in the rule. Granted, it benefited him, but unlike Kurt Flood, but still,
yes, exactly.
Using, I can go wherever I want to now.
Yeah. So yeah, Clarence Seedorf, thank you all very much.